This is Amber Lynn. You're listening to the Tim O and Harley Show.
Welcome to the Tim O and Harley Show.
Thank you for listening to the Tim O and Harley Show. I am Tim O. Over there is my partner in mind crime, Mr. Ben Harley. Say hello, Harley.
What is happening, people?
Ben, the hobby horse Harley.
That boy. Hop along, hobby horse. Yeah.
How the hell are you doing? How the hell are you doing, hobby horse Harley?
Not too bad, my friend.
That's good. Harley, can you imagine what a world would be like if you had time to have a hobby or a horse?
Or a horse? Yeah, no. It would be a dream come true.
You never know, Mr. Ben Harley. Keep dreaming the dream. Keep dreaming the dream.
That's right.
You know what they say? You keep working hard, and all your dreams will come true. Right?
That's true. That's right. That's what they say.
Are we at a point where you're still believing that shit?
No.
Okay, very good.
I am. Right. I take that back. That's not right.
So let's see, Mr. Ben Harley.
How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing all right. It is spring is breaking out big time here. In my parts, the woods are coming to life. It's always amazing. It's absolutely amazing to see the woods go from sticks to like trees in a matter of just like a day or two. It's insane. Yeah. Now the first thing that pops up is the evil honeysuckle stuff that we don't like.
Of your existence.
It's terrible around here too. It's like a canopy. It gets over everything. And it's bad. But it's the first thing that starts getting the leaves. At least you can see it for a little while and start attacking it. For a week or two or so. But it's coming to life, though, Mr. Ben Harley. It is coming to life. So, hello, deep thinkers out there, by the way.
Yeah, hello, y'all.
We got a little gift for you for the deep thinkers, Mr. Ben Harley. Our gift is a little less Tim O and Harley. How about that?
Just a little.
It's a little less. A little. Yeah. Last week we had our good friend from the Dwarves, the Fresh Prince of Darkness himself, Mr. Marc Diamond, on the show. We talked a little bit about Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yes, yeah.
And he had seen it, you had seen it, so we kind of had a face-off. Yes. And the actual original reason that we were even talking to Mark was because I had been talking on the show for a while now that we had a couple shows about some Sharksploitation movies. We reviewed the movie Mako for one thing, so that was kind of a big deal. And that was kind of fun for us to do because it was new to all of us. And including Mark. I'm going to put Mark in us right now because he is a kindred spirit when it comes to some of these animals run amok and shark-type movies and things like that. And so it was kind of new to everybody. But the thing is, when we were talking to Mark about the Sharksploitation stuff, it was before any of us had seen Mako. Right. And of course, after he had seen Mako,
he really wanted to talk about it.
Can you imagine watching Mako and not having this podcast to unleash your thoughts on it? It just ain't fair. Right. So he needed that outlet as much as we did. So basically, I just had him come back on, and we don't just talk about Mako, but it's pretty much Mako. We talk a little bit about we touch on a couple of Jaws sequels. And Grizzly and a couple other things. But it's mostly kind of based around Mako. But hey, it's a fun subject to talk about, right?
It is. Oh yeah, definitely.
And you know, when you kind of when you introduce someone to Mako, you owe them a moment on your program to talk about it. So. All right, Mr. Ben. So without further ado, let's welcome in our good pal, Mr. Marc Diamond from the Dwarves. Here we go.
All right.
Main reason, I guess the second reason, too, that we had you back on the show was because a couple months ago, we had you on talking about Sharksploitation movies. And it seemed like right after we had you on, you, myself, and Harley discovered Mako, Jaws of Death, and all of us found it fascinating separately. And then I think we just started talking about a couple other films too. And basically what happened was when we were done with that first conversation about Sharksploitation movies, I think we kind of decided we need to come back to this again because we just weren't done. There was just a few more things. Plus, and we'll start with Mako. Plus, there was this movie that none of us had seen, but all of us had heard of, Mako. And then we all saw it at the same time. What did you think about that movie?
Yeah, that's one I remember as a kid, seeing an ad for, but it never played at the theaters near us. You'd always see it referenced, as, an early, shark film or whatever. But I never remember seeing it like at the video store or anything like that. And I got my copy from you. You just assume it's going to be a piece of shit like all the other ones. But it's got a very kind of interesting tone,
Right.
The opening is, it's okay to talk about it, right? So,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
The opening scene, you see a scuba diver, there's some guys fishing. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily shark fishing, but they're fishing. They hook a shark. And then some scuba diver cuts the shark loose, climbs on the boat, and brutally murders both these people in cold blood,
Right.
And then you find out that this is your protagonist. This is the guy that you're supposed to be rooting for. You just watched him kill these two people for doing really nothing.
Well, let me ask you a question as a Los Angeles native. Someone who lives right next to a large body of water. Now, I don't live on the water. I don't live by the ocean or not. But you tell me, if you were on a boat out in the ocean and you were, I guess, hooking a shark, let's say, out in the middle of the ocean, and out of nowhere, a gentleman wearing scuba gear climbs up onto your boat, would you have the same reaction that those fishermen had, which was basically like, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah, it's very odd, how did he get there? Did he swim there from the beach?
Yeah.
They didn't seem, and he came up, I can't remember if he had the hook. Did he have like a grappling hook with him or something?
He had like some kind of harpoon type of thing with him.
The harpoon thing. Yeah. They didn't seem terribly surprised, and then he kills them, and then he just jumps back in the ocean and swims away. And it's very odd. And then when you're reintroduced to this character as this very sensitive guy,
right?
You haven't gotten the backstory yet. He's a super sensitive guy. He doesn't like people hurting sharks and whatever.
Right.
But you've just seen him kill people. Then later you get that backstory that he was given the magic necklace that protects him. It's also interesting. The film is called Mako, but there's no Mako sharks in it.
Right.
All the sharks that they show in it are all clearly tiger sharks.
Yeah, right.
They're all tiger sharks, and that's kind of interesting too, because this is a cheap looking movie, so they're obviously real sharks. This is very before CGI, and they certainly didn't build anything for this movie. So that's kind of an impressive thing, because they're definitely real sharks.
Right.
The tone of the movie works. You watch it. My wife hates all this shit that I watch. She happened to be in the room when I was watching that one, and she got kind of into it,
Right.
And I was like, this movie's kind of, you can't say it's a good movie.
No.
But, and the bar is set very low in these, shark ripoff, Jaws ripoff films. But it has a very strange tone, and it is engaging. You meet all the characters at the bar, the guy, the big fat bar owner, that guy's pretty great.
Right.
His wife's, she's been in some stuff too. She's hot.
Right.
You meet the kind of, obnoxious, hey, show us your tit drunk guys, which are always at every bar or whatever, hassling the cute waitress people or whatever.
Right.
But then they follow her home, pull her out of her car, and try to rape her.
Right.
So you have that kind of weird tone change. Like, wow, that kind of got heavy pretty quick.
Sure.
They follow her home, get her to the side of the road, and they just both jump on her. And then our hero, the guy who just murdered two people in cold blood, he comes out and saves her from the rapist.
Right.
Who, of course, are also back at the bar the next day, buying drinks and slapping her on the butt again. Right. When she's like, hey, man, things, it was a little bit out of line yesterday when you guys pulled me over and tried to gang rape me. But, that kind of crossed the line. Don't do that again. Right. So it's the tone of the movie is really weird. It
is. But, it's like a weird supernatural slasher. It hints at what it is, but it hints at like three different things, but never really goes all the way. Is it supernatural? Is it a slasher? Or is it a shark movie?
For people looking for a shark movie, for people who love Deep Blue Sea or something, they're not going to like this movie.
Right.
There's not that much shark stuff. if you're looking at for a slasher movie, you know, it's going to satisfy the gorehound people. Mm-hmm. But it's an interesting movie. And the girl's quite good in it. And the fat husband bar owner guy, he's actually very good too. And then Richard Jackal's in it.
Yeah, he's great. He is. You know, the funny thing is that during that movie, the director, William Griffey, I guess his name or whatever, apparently said that Jekyll only flubbed one line of dialogue throughout the entire shoot of the film. Now that is impressive. I mean, you know, the thing is we've both played guitar on stage for quite a long time, right? I can't recall maybe a verse I didn't flub a little something here and there. Exactly. And to think that a guy could take we're talking, he meant every take. Like, the guy didn't flub a line. He knew every line. And this isn't like a big budget film. He's in Mako, Jaws of Death, and he cares enough to where he knows his part, to where he flubs a line once. He's like the Neil Peart of acting. Right. That to me is impressive.
Yeah, he's definitely committed to the character. I mean, you know, it's funny. You know, you sent me this movie. We had all heard of it. You actually got a copy of it, and at the same time, you and I had been watching a lot of other, you know, crappy Jaws ripoffs. And right. You know, after watching, you know, Killer Fish with Lee Majors and you know, stuff like that. You figure Mako is going to be pretty bad, but it was surprisingly entertaining. I liked it. You know?
I think that's a perfect way of putting it, too. It's not a good movie, but it is entertaining and engaging. I think the bizarreness of it is almost to the point where you're so guffawed, you can't really take your eyes off of it. Because you did explain the very first scene very well. But then I'm watching this boat. I expect something with a shark to happen. I'm expecting something. What I'm not expecting is your random passerby on the ocean in scuba gear climbing up. And first of all, he saves a shark. But the thing is, there's no explanation as to what's going on. You're just being showed things. And I think the way that it's edited together and put together, and even like the pacing isn't that great, but it's enough for you to kind of like keep wondering, what the hell is this movie going to do to me next?
You know, honestly, you know, that week I was doing like a lot of shark stuff. You know, I was going back and watching like Piranha 2 and, you know, we watched Killer Fish. I had just gotten a copy of Barracuda, which is terrible. We had talked about Tintorera, which had that one really, really good scene. But, you know, basically, you know, you watch Barracuda, you know, your finger's on the forward button, you know. Right. It's just terrible. This movie, you know, from the first moment I put it on, I never forwarded anything, you know what I mean? Right. I never felt like, oh, you know, this is going to, you know, just be horrible for the next 40 minutes until they, you know, got another $50 together to film a exciting scene. Sure. You know, I watched the whole movie and like, you know, for what it is, the people in it are good. There's a character plot line, and, you know, even my wife who was sitting through it was kind of like, oh, what happens at the end, you know? Right. So, you know, it would like, you know, when you watch Killer Fish or Barracuda, you're just like, oh God, just let it end.
Well, those movies are almost like they throw in the aquatic threat just because Jaws was there. This movie feels like somebody wanted to make a shark movie, but make something also like a slasher movie, and they put it together, as opposed to those movies feel like they were completed scripts and somebody threw some fish in there. That's what they feel like. Because Killer Fish is like a bizarre, like, I don't know, crime drama type of thing. And Barracuda's not too far off from that.
Exactly, yeah. Killer Fish is a heist movie, a bad heist movie, which, you know, at some point someone said, hey, sharks are hip now. Throw in some piranhas and, you know, we'll make some money. Right. You know, Barracuda is that whole, you know, government doing that thing, and they just got to throw in some Barracuda attacks. But, you know, this is, for what it's worth, you know, it's a story. Right. And really, if you look at the date, I mean, it came out 76, so it was pretty early in, you know, as far as the post-Jaws stuff.
I'm actually looking at my notes here from when we reviewed it, and we actually called it Jekyllsploitation. Because the thing is, too, what I like, I think this is also what helps it, is that he does, and I say this all the time on every show, everything I ever do, but he plays it so straight that I think it makes it work. Because I think weird and goofy movies, when the actors are the characters and the actors, when they're acting weird and goofy also, I don't think it helps it. I think that the audience, you should think the audience is smart enough to realize they're in a bizarre movie and just play it straight. Just let the weirdness be weird.
Right, sure. Yeah.
And I think that in these exploitation B movies too, there's two things. You got to play them straight or else it doesn't feel right. And the other thing too, you can't be boring because you're already like fighting an uphill battle because you're probably a low budget film. You got very limited resources. So you can't let the dialogue go on too long. You can't make it too boring. You can't shift it too far away. And I always feel like the movie, you just never know where that thing is going to turn next. And sometimes you're a little confused even because, I mean, he kind of keeps sharks. He lives on an island and keeps sharks in some kind of like
underneath his house.
Yeah, like where usually a mad scientist keeps his like alligators and things to throw victims down into. He's got these, and he talks to them.
It's weird. I mean, like I said, I think the movie works. I mean, I never once saw my finger creeping towards the forward button, and I never once looked at the clock. Go, oh my god, how much longer? You know, sometimes you pause a movie just to see how much shit you have to sit through until it's done.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I never did this with this. It's a weird movie. The tone's weird, but the people in it are good. The big fat guy, his name was Buffy D.
Okay.
Yeah, and he
perfect.
And remember too, he was always wearing a big bottle around his neck.
I don't remember the bottle. I just remember he was shirtless way too much. I do remember that.
He's an enormous guy, you know, and he does it great with like the big cigar and stuff. He's always shirtless, and he's got the hot wife. But he has a big, it's not a flask. It's like this big, it looks like he's wearing like a thermos around his neck. I never could figure out what that was, you know. It's very odd, but it had, you know, like you said about, you know, Jekyll playing it straight, you know, he makes that deal for the shark to go into the bar aquarium.
Right.
But then with a caveat of, if I come back and the shark tells me he's not happy, I'm going to take him back home, okay? And they agree on it, you know. Right. And then it turns out that, you know, the bar owner guy, you know, had him sign a contract saying, no, I own that shark now. And of course, he puts electrodes in the water and tries to drive the shark crazy or whatever. But and it's great because Jekyll, he goes, but we had a deal. Yeah, and the guy kind of looks at him, you know, sort of like, yeah, you said that you came back and the shark told you he wasn't happy if you go back home with you. He goes, you signed the paper. I bought the fish. You know what I mean? Right. But like you said, he plays it totally straight. He goes, the shark's telling me that he's not really happy, so I'm going to take him home.
Right.
And the guy said, no, you're not doing that. I bought the shark. I own it. It's just very weird. But like you said, he plays it totally straight, you know? And for that matter, the bar owner guy, Buffy D, he plays the straight, you know, businessman. You signed the paper. I bought the shark. I can do whatever I want with it. It's a fish. I mean, it's very bizarre, you know?
Well, and then you're watching it, and then you're like, you almost like rubbing your eyes. Like, am I seeing this figure come up on the boat, like in the beginning? You're rubbing your eyes. Then also you turn around and you go, is that Odd Job? Is that... Well, that's Odd Job, right? And it is. It's that Harold Cicada, I think is it.
Yeah. He's like the mean shark fisherman.
He's one of the there's a guy, the guy that I liked, Ben Harley. He gravitated toward the fat fella you liked. I liked Mr. Whitney, that jerk off. The guy who I think he was Harold Cicada's like boss, and so Odd Job and the other guy were his henchmen. He basically is also menacing Jekyll through the movie, and he's the one who's I think he wants to take the sharks to experiment on. He wants to borrow his sharks for experiments, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and that doesn't make Jekyll very happy either. And I think he kind of fleeces Jekyll out of his sharks as well, you know. But he was something else too. And so then he had those two henchmen. And Harold Cicada, I think, was one of them. Yeah,
he was. And you know, that's funny, too. When you think about weird scenes, when Jekyll kills the two henchmen, who are like the people he kills in the beginning, they're not shark fishermen. It's just like, you know, somebody hired a guy, hey, take me out fishing. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, it's just total tourists. I don't think they're fishing for sharks. I don't think, you know.
They chartered a boat for the afternoon to go fishing out in the ocean. Yeah.
Right. Like, the two other guys, Cicada and the other guy, they're the mean shark fishermen. They're the guys who are looking for sharks. They're hacking off the fins. They're mean.
Right.
But then you have the part when Jekyll gets them, he brings them back on the boat and he strung them up like fish. Remember?
Right.
That scene worked for me too. It's like, wow, that's kind of powerful.
Right.
And I remember he steers the boat into the dock and jumps off when the people come out to see what the commotion was. The two guys have been hung up and butchered the way they were butchering the sharks.
Right.
The movie has, the tone's just very odd,
To me, it felt like Willard with sharks.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, because Willard, had the trained rats or whatever, and I don't know if these sharks are trained necessarily, but and that's the other thing too, they don't really, the movie never really fully tells you, is he training these things? Because he's knocking on the boat. He gives the sharks these signals a couple times in the movie. He'll knock on the side of a boat or do something, right. And it's a signal to the sharks. But then they have the bizarre scene. Can you tell me what war he was in, wearing those clothes too?
That's a weird one, right? There's that sudden flashback where he's being chased by some soldiers, but and then he has to swim across a river, and when he gets across the river, which apparently had the sharks eat the soldiers, so I don't remember a lot of shark problems in Vietnam.
Was it Vietnam or was it World War II? I thought he said it was World War II.
It's very odd, but then the other thing, when he gets out of the river and walks up the hill, the guy he meets, the native tribesperson, to me, looks clearly, to be like some sort of Polynesian.
Right.
Right. Or something, South Pacific in like the way he's dressed and all the stuff. And he says, wow, we've never seen anybody swim across the river of sharks. The sharks must like you. Take the magic necklace and you can talk to sharks. but you're kind of like usually like in cheesy movies, they'll do like the blurry vision. It says, okay, we're going to a dream now, like a flashback. Right. And all of a sudden it's just, he's being pursued through the forest with army guys. And you're like, what the fuck's going on? And then you realize that's where he got his magic necklace. Right. But I don't know timeline what war that was supposed to be. He's certainly not any younger in the scene.
No, and the other thing too was that standard Army regulation uniform. I think he was wearing a white pants or something. I mean, it was like, I don't know. It was like one of those movies. I think really honestly, I sat there with my jaw open, watching it, going, I can't believe this.
Yeah, that part to me looked like kind of like something from like an Eddie Romero film.
Yeah,
where.
Yeah.
Like the tourist wearing the white leisure pants wandered too far off the resort and got chased by the mean local people or something. It was really weird.
Right, but that's not what they were implying. And so what they were showing you, so it was almost like they wanted to show you something and figured out something was wrong and implied something completely different and said, well, we paid for the film. Let's just stick it in there. It's there because we have no other better explanation how Jekyll can talk to sharks, I guess. It's just strange. I mean, and the little another actor in it too. I know you didn't catch this because I didn't even catch this either, but I kind of was digging around for some information on this movie and had to go back and apparently credited as the third patrolman. All right, in the film. And I think if I remember, I went back and found him. He was one of the cops that came in toward the end of the film where it all goes haywire in the bar, was Luke Halperin. From Shockwaves, the star of Shockwaves, and he was also on Flipper.
Was it? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no, he was one of the cops in the movie. I'm like, it's just another one of those moments where I'm like, why did he do that? How did he do it? I know that they were real big in those water movies and stuff like that, doing that, and I know even Rico Browning and stuff had some kind of relationship with Luke Halperin, and it feels like Rico Browning was hanging around somewhere. Looming around the background or something in this movie too, but it just has that feel to it.
Yeah, it sort of has that. What was the one, the Mr. No Legs feel?
Yes, right.
It kind of looks like the same kind of just the film and the look of it kind of.
Sure.
Which Rico Browning, he directed that, right?
Yes. Yeah. We watch some strange movies, my friend. Let me tell you right now, this is definitely no exception whatsoever.
When you put it next to a lot of the other Jaws ripoffs, though, it definitely works for me.
Oh, it does.
I liked it. If I had seen it when I was 12, I would have, there's not enough shark in it or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But watching it now, I'm like, wow, this kind of kind of a bizarrely great movie.
Right.
You know?
And there's really no secret why someone like you or I would have missed this film up until now, is because, I mean, I remember the various box arts on the VHS copies, like when you would go into like a VHS rental place, and it looked like one of those movies, and I know you know what I mean, that had a shark in the title or a shark on the cover, but really what it was people after sunken treasure. You know, or something like that. And maybe a random shark showed up and attacked somebody once in the movie. But it's not. It's sort of like if you watch the Kirk Douglas 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, expecting it to be a killer octopus movie or a squid movie, you're in big trouble. You're going to have a long day if you're waiting for that. So,
but you know, it's just weird. Like as a kid, you know, I would rent anything which had a shark on it. I just never ran into it. I'd heard of it. Okay. I never saw it anywhere. Never saw it in stores.
Well, it did not look good. I mean, like I would pick up the box and be like, nah, I don't want to watch that, you know, but it's not the only one. But now looking at, you know, maybe I'm glad I saw it now though. I think I can appreciate it more now because of what you kind of said.
I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't have liked it if I saw it when I was young. I like it now.
Right. You know, it's not, this is sort of tying into Sharksploitation in that this is another Jaws ripoff movie, but another movie that my wife and I just sat down this past weekend and watched. And it's been a little while since I watched it. And I'm just still blown away by this movie, is Grizzly. We sat down to watch it, and I expected to enjoy it. You know I like Grizzly. It's a fun movie, but it's getting better with age.
Grizzly, I watch Grizzly all the time. I love Grizzly. I remember seeing it as a kid. You know, I mean, the opening scene, you have the two hot girls, and the bear tears them apart. I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm hooked. Right. You know, and they also killed a kid. You know, people always shy away from killing kids. So, you know, he kills the kid or tears his leg off, or I can't remember.
And that's another Jekyll-sploitation movie, too, because that's got Richard Jekyll in it as well. That's got a great cast, though. You know, Harley and I were talking about Andrew Prine. We did a convention with Andrew Prine. And we talked to him quite a bit at the show. And just a great, swell guy. And, you know, he's one of those guys, you keep your ears open when you're around him. Because he's been in Hollywood so long. You know, he's one of those guys that he probably doesn't open his mouth without a few names falling behind his feet when he's walking away from you and stuff. And we talked about Grizzly. And it was really interesting. As soon as we mentioned Grizzly, he looked at us and started getting emotional and started immediately talking about William Girdler, the director, and talking about what a friend he was and what an amazing, talented director this guy was, and how he was only 30 when he died. And
he died in the helicopter crash.
Yeah, and that spoke volumes to me because, look, let's be fair. You know, he made The Manitou, one of the worst films ever made, but you can't say it isn't unique. And I think had he lived, 30 years old, think about that. So had he lived, I'm convinced he would have not only been a big time director, much more than he is even now. He's more of a cult director right now. I think he could have possibly even created a subgenre of film because he was so unique at everything he did. I mean, you look at Grizzly, Day of the Animals. What stranger movie than Day of the Animals 2? It's almost as strange as Mako.
Yeah, and Day of the Animals has Susan Backway in it from Jaws.
Yes, and because
she's one of the hikers.
Yeah, I think wasn't she also an animal handler, and I think they cast her because not only was she a handler, but she could act, and I think her and her husband were the animal handlers on that film, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I'm going off memory here, but I think so. But the thing is that, you know, I was telling Harley, because we were talking about this exact thing. I said, you know, I think The Manitou is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but I also watch it every now and then because
it's not boring.
No, it's so bizarre. It's so unique, and it's really made really well. Like the camera work and everything is very good. You can tell some money was invested in it. You know, and everything too. Yeah. And so I'm sad that we don't get to see what he did after that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, you know, there's movies that are bad, but they're, you know, I get in this argument all the time with like Jaws films. I will always sit down and watch Jaws: The Revenge, which is terrible. but I can't watch Jaws 3 because it's bad and boring. You know what I mean? You know, they're both bad. Jaws 4 is one of the worst movies ever made, but it's incredibly entertaining, you know?
Right. And I have the opposite with those two movies, but I mean, I see what you're saying, and it's certainly not worth arguing over because they're both bad movies. They're really bad movies. I think part of it has to do with I was only 10 when Jaws 3 came out. So, and I went in the theater, and it was, I think, the first 3D movie I'd ever seen. So I have a little bit more affinity for that. And then I went and saw Jaws the Revenge with a friend of mine, and I was probably, I don't know how, like 16 or 17, I guess, at that point or something. And I wouldn't have none of it by that point. I was like, this is terrible.
Jaws 4, I saw Jaws 4 in the theaters. It was the first movie I'd ever been in where at the end, you know, people booed and made the hissing sound. Which I'd only seen referenced oh, this used to happen in old timey theaters.
Right.
The audience didn't like it, that hiss. People hissed.
Right. All right, Mark. Well, we are out of time, but thanks again, and I hope you feel like you got a little bit more of the Sharksploitation conversation out of your system. And again, Mako. We all watched Mako about the same time, which was after we talked to you the first time. So. I knew you wanted to talk about that, so I'm glad you had the opportunity. And thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Keep your eyes open for some Dwarves stuff. I know we still got the pandemic going on, but afterwards, I have a funny thing. You guys are probably raring to rock again, so everybody kind of keep your eyes open on that. So again, Mark, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you here soon.
All right, thank you. Take care.
All right, Mr. Ben Harley.
All right.
Marc Diamond. Yes. We finally let him unload. You know, you can't keep that pent up. You can't keep Mako pent up too long, especially when you're watching a movie called Mako and there's no Mako sharks in it.
No, not one. Well, yeah, there was one, Tim.
On the wall.
Hanging on the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
But then
it wasn't as scary as it hanging on the wall as it would be swimming around.
Right. Yeah. You know, the movie would have made sense if Richard Jekyll's nickname would have been Mako. Or something like that, you know. Here comes Mako. Yeah. Look out, Mako's on the, you know. Don't slap that shark around anymore, Biff. Here comes Mako. He'll get mad.
And he got mad.
He did get mad. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Ben Harley, it's not only one of my new favorite Sharksploitation movies, it's definitely one of also my new favorite Jekyll-sploitation. Films as well. So, but again, thank you, Marc Diamond, for always coming on the show and being a friend to me and Mr. Ben Harley and a kindred spirit when it comes to a lot of these movies here. I did see something neat or cool, I guess.
Yeah.
Neat might be a little bit of a flimsy word for a punk rock band, but I did see that the Dwarves did get back together and did some rehearsing.
Oh, did they? Okay.
That's a good sign. Good. You know, that's another sign of the world opening back up.
Back together.
It's coming back up. Yes, absolutely. So,
that's awesome.
Hey, I know Fragile Porcelain Mice has been in some negotiations too.
Yeah.
For a couple of shows that are coming on the horizon. Let's put it that way. Okay. Nothing announced yet, but so doing good. And then Ultraman. Actually, I already
recorded some stuff.
Yeah, Ultraman. I already recorded my guitar tracks, and Gabe has his drum tracks recorded. So. Nice. I guess that is well on its way too, so we'll keep everybody posted on that as well. So, and good luck to the Dwarves. I want to see them back out on the road, and they need to come through St. Louis so we can play another gig with them and hang out with Mark.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That would be fun.
That'd be a good one for you to come in town for, Mr. Ben Harley.
Yeah, You know, it was nice. I got to see him in Columbus. Which was fun.
Right.
You know, so it would be nice to see him again.
Sure. Good time. So, all right, well, let's get to our official film for this week, Mr. Ben Harley. All right, this week from 1977.
77.
That's a good. We're in a good weird movie year. You know what I mean? 77 was sort of like a. Are you watching a horror film or is it a darker episode of Fantasy Island or The Love Boat or something? You never.
Right, exactly.
It was a weird time. Yeah. The rated R movies felt PG. And then they'd throw boobs in or something like that, right?
Yeah,
very strange
they sure
time.
would. Yeah.
What we have here from 1977, Mr. Ben Harley, is The Incredible Melting Man. All right, let's see here. Let's get out Movie Guy and give you a short storyline, as if we need a huge storyline synopsis here for this film. Let me give you what they got here. from you. So let's get out movie guy and give you this story.
Movie guy.
Here we go.
Yeah.
An astronaut is transformed into a murderous gelatinous mass after returning home from an ill-fated space voyage. Okay. Let me decipher this for you.
Yeah.
Almost as if I sat in the editing room with the other pot smoker.
Sure, right.
Okay, so some astronauts are in the rings of Saturn. And they do what you should never do when you are in a spacecraft floating through the rings of Saturn. They observe the sun. They observe the sun through the rings of Saturn and all hell breaks loose. Yeah. So really what I'm telling you is this. The next time you're in a space capsule, all right, and you're looking around space, just don't look at the sun through the rings because you don't want anything to happen to these astronauts. Especially the main guy, the incredible melting man. So, all right, so old Melty McMeltington guy here, the mustache melter. He comes back to Earth. You don't see any of this, by the way. What we are shown is people in a capsule, and then a lot of stock footage of solar flares. And some NASA footage.
Yeah.
And
a guy wrapped in bandages.
I mean, it jumps right to this. So basically, that the astronauts have been afflicted with something because, they're in there and they're in the capsule. They start having problems like communicating, with mission control. And then the one guy, the main guy, the incredible melting man guy with a mustache. All right. Yeah. He's a mustache melter. Okay.
Old handsome.
Gets a nosebleed. So there's problems and stuff. So and so you were seeing this, and the next thing you know, no landing, no journey back, nothing. Right. No. Nothing. Just a guy wrapped in gauze. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally right. Like all you can see is like his eyes, really, like a little bit where he can breathe, like a little slit there.
Right. But it doesn't take very long. A couple doctors come in. Now we're introduced to a couple doctors. So what we have here is we're introduced to Dr. Ted Nelson, our hero, I guess, of the film, played by one Burr de Benning. That's Harley. I didn't look this up, but let me tell you something. If that's not a Canadian name,
I
don't know Canadian names, and if it's not, he was actually in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, the Dream Child, played Mr. Jordan, and he's been in a lot of TV and stuff like that. You've seen him around. He's a familiar face. This movie is kind of packed full of character actors and actresses. I mean, just the whole thing, like from top to bottom, is pretty much, and some surprises actually on the way too. So it's him and Leslie Wilson as Dr. Lorning, the African American gentleman, who was driving me crazy because this guy was so familiar.
So familiar. Yeah.
Well, he was in the movie Sisters, the old Brian De Palma movie with Margot Kidder in it as the conjoined twins. He was in that movie. Now, the other thing I just watched that he was in was an episode of Night Court. I know that sounds odd, but I know I was telling you that I was watching, kind of freaking out on a few seasons of Night Court. And I don't know if you remember that show or not, but Harry was friends with kind of a runaway named Leon, who was shining shoes and stuff. And he even tried to adopt him and stuff like that. This guy, the doctor in this movie ends up being one of the people that actually adopts Leon, and he's like really square.
Okay.
Why? And he's holding a pipe and stuff. He's totally not hip at all. So anyway, though, but he's another familiar face. So they basically figure out that the incredible melting man, Steve West, I guess is a character's name. The actor's Alex Rebar.
Steve.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So they figure out that Alex Rebar is, let's call him Alex Rebar, the actor. They find out that he is radioactive.
Yeah, he is. And very melty.
Yeah. So this is the first big mistake that I noticed. All right. That's not the first big mistake I noticed in the movie, but it's the first one where it was really avoidable. was when they test him with the Geiger counter. I think they should have turned the Geiger counter on first. They roll the Geiger counter over his entire body to complete silence. There's no
nothing. Yeah.
I don't even know if they even realize who it is. Do they?
Right.
Do they even realize this is an astronaut's back? Because they don't even talk about it.
No, I'm pretty sure they did, but they don't really. Steve.
Well, okay. Let me tell you something. First of all, so the director, William Sachs, he directed Galaxina, which is another cult film or whatever. But he wanted to make this into more like a comic book, like the old horror comics, like creepy.
Yeah.
So, but he wanted to make it like that. That's what he wanted to do. The producers wanted more of a straight horror film.
Okay. All right.
So what he wanted to do is he basically didn't want to give the backstory. So he wanted to almost open up with a guy laying there in gauze.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And then
that's almost what they did.
Almost right. So that's why. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why you also need this odd stuck in stock footage of solar flares and NASA stuff, and people in a like a capsule of some sort, flipping switches and things like that. They kind of stuck that in there to give you a little backstory. I gotta be honest with you though, I'm okay with that.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, this movie's strange enough where I'm not really sure you needed.
No.
So
that would have been fine. Yeah, if they just started with him just sitting there, and
right.
It might have,
right.
Because he's not sitting there very long before he jumps up and tears all the stuff off and
but first
very melty.
Right. Well, when they false read, I guess the radiation on Alex Rebar. So Berta Benning makes a phone call. Now let me talk about Berta Benning as Dr. Ted Nelson. The one thing I learned about Dr. Ted Nelson is he has a real issue with telephone calls and being hung up on.
Yeah.
It's like, guy, don't like being hung up on.
No,
At all. Okay. So the first odd thing that humans don't do that I noticed in this movie that I can recall. Now, this movie is chock full of this stuff, and we're going to have fun talking about it.
Seriously, there's a lot of stuff where it's like humans, no one's acting like anything that even remotely seems human.
No, not at all.
Would do. Right. Yeah.
Right. So, Dr. Ted Nelson, so when he reads the radiation, I don't really know what triggers this. They don't really say, but he makes a secret phone call to General Michael Perry. Okay, played by Myron Healy. He's got 320 credits on IMDb, so he's been in everything. They call him, and so he answers the phone. Now, first of all, the environment that General Michael Perry is in, I don't know how military that. It looked a little bit more like a kindergartner classroom with some switches and dials put on the wall. And people sitting at this big table. And if he was General Michael Perry, the military in 1977 was a lot more casual.
Yeah, there's not many military outfits in it. No.
He just announces himself as General Michael Perry. But the funny thing is, so he answers the phone, okay? Now he's sitting there wouldn't you think a general might have his own office is what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I don't know though.
So he's manning, He's manning what looks like a control panel. I don't know. It's something. And the phone rings, and he goes, "Hello, General Michael Perry speaking." He goes, "General Perry, this is Dr. Ted Nelson." And as soon as he says that, General Perry looks around the room and turns around. And he grabs the phone. And is like, "Okay, well, what do you got for me?" It's like, okay, now stop. So just stop, okay? Now, does Dr. Ted Nelson call General Perry a lot? Or only when there's something really, really mysterious afoot?
I think maybe then. I don't know, but it's only
It wasn't like he said, he goes, "Is this General Michael Perry?" "Yes, this is Dr. Ted Nelson. I have an astronaut that's been radiated in my hospital right over here." No, he just says, "This is Dr. Ted Nelson," and he's like, he's making sure nobody's listening to him. It's like, hey, General, maybe try to see if the military might flip for an office for you or something. Maybe a cordless phone. I'm sure they had one or two in 77. Come on now.
I'm sure they probably did.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So he tells him that there is a radiated person basically there in his thing. And I guess they kind of are figuring out who it is. But you're right. It doesn't take long. And Alex Rebar, he wakes up all gauzed up, and he sits up and he's not happy. He's upset.
Yeah, he is. He's very upset.
He's irritated.
I'm upset for him because nobody knows who he is.
Right. So he pulls off all of his gauze and looks in the mirror. Now this is where everything gets moving. But what's funny, so he pulls his gauze off and he sees his face. It does look like a really bad radiation sickness thing. Like his face is all messed up. And this is enter the real star of this movie, Rick Baker. Rick Baker.
The monster maker.
Yes, did a lot of the makeup for this. I don't think he was actually credited for the special effects, but for the makeup he was. And guess who else was running around this set helping out?
Who's that?
Rob Bottin.
Was it?
Yeah, he's probably 4 at the time.
Yeah,
running around picking his nose and helping out.
Yeah.
But what's pretty funny is so we had the one scene I just told you about where like they make a phone call to a general who basically crouches over like so no one can hear him talking. It's a high tech stuff in the 70s, and then when Alex Rebar pulls his gauze off. It all comes off except for this giant piece of gauze that comes sticking directly out of his left nostril. It just hangs there.
Yeah.
It just hangs there. It's like, just cut and pull it off because it's funny. It's too funny.
Yeah.
And then he like scares this heavy set nurse. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Harley, I've been afraid in my life.
Yes.
I've been afraid for my life before. I've never had a reaction like this
lady,
woman does. No.
She runs down the hallway, and it's a long hallway. I was like, is he chasing her? What's going on?
In slow motion.
It's out of shot. I was like, what is going on, man? Like, yeah, she's hot-footing it out of there.
It's like this static shot of this really long hallway, and she's screaming, running directly toward the camera. And it takes, 30 seconds?
Yeah.
It's forever. And it's in slow motion. And I don't want to be like too cruel about this, but people aren't always like in their most flattering look when they're running in slow motion screaming. But a heavy set woman in a tight nurse's outfit, it's just not flattering at all. And they just don't stop. It just stays on her and on her. And you're right. The whole time you're kind of looking over her shoulder like,
yeah, where is he coming?
Yeah, I have never been so afraid of something in my entire life.
And then she goes crashing through the glass door.
She doesn't even open the
door.
No, she runs straight through it. And then once she runs straight through it, where's the melting man at?
Right on her heels.
Yes. Right there, he's zoom. He must be the fastest man alive. He's part cheetah.
Yeah, seriously.
He
is right there. Yeah.
Right, and he never moves very fast in the rest of the movie, but in that part, wow.
No. Like somebody has to kill people to get something.
They basically surmise between Dr. Ted Nelson and General Michael Perry and even Leslie Wilson, the Dr. Loring guy. Between all of them, they kind of figure out he's disintegrating, so his mind is also
disintegrating.
Yeah, it's also melting, and he needs human cells to try to stay alive as long as he can, even though he's melting. So if he has human cells, I guess it replaces. It's almost like a vampire, I guess, in a way.
Sure, there you go.
I guess. I mean,
I don't know. It's
he never seems to regenerate.
I mean, no, he always keeps melting.
And that's basically it. So he goes around the countryside and just keeps killing people. I mean, he finds different people, and that's what the movie is. Him sneaking around the countryside and encountering different people that he's going to kill. Right. And I got to tell you, I kind of appreciated the simplicity of all that.
Sure. Definitely.
The thing I didn't appreciate was a lot of it is really drawn out. I mean, there's a lot of static shots and things. Like the hallway scene we were just talking about is a good example of I see what you're doing here, but please cut. I mean, please cut. Just to be like polite to the poor young lady that's running down the hall. Please cut. Can you imagine the premiere if the woman who was playing that nurse was in the audience?
Yeah.
Hearing the people in
my big part.
And then she gets to see that and hears these people in the audience like comment like, I'd be horrified. Yeah. I would be absolutely horrified. And it's not like I'm really not trying to be cruel. It's not like there's anything wrong. It's just not a flattering thing. They didn't ever do anything that they should have had someone else do that. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
But what's interesting is that watching this is basically a remake of the first Man into Space, which was a black and white movie where a guy goes up into space. He comes back and he starts turning more and more into a gooey monster.
Yeah,
and killing people as he comes back, and we do have that to review. So I'm actually thinking, I'm thinking about maybe back to back in this to seeing like how similar they are to each other too. Yeah. But I got to admit to you, Harley, it is kind of fun because really it's just a series of unfortunate characters throughout the rest of the movie, and then you have bizarre scenes with like Dr. Ted Nelson and General Perry and Nelson's wife.
Yeah,
and they're like. It's another one of these movies, Harley, where I don't know what was going on, but nobody's acting like humans. Nobody.
No. 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 There's like the part with like was the general staying the night at their house or something because like the wife and the husband or Ted Nelson are talking, and he just like appears out of nowhere. He's like, "What now? What about Steve?" You know.
Well, there's a moment. There's a moment where. Apparently, Nelson's wife has a real thing for having people over for dinner.
Oh yeah.
So she keeps telling him that all these people are coming over for dinner, and meanwhile he's trying to track down the incredible Belting Man, and he's like, "Oh no, not tonight, baby. We can't do dinner tonight. No, not tonight." He's like, I already invited him, so there you go. You know, and including her parents.
Oh yeah, that's a funny scene too.
Oh, Harley.
I liked it. I liked them two little coots. They were funny.
I think they were searching for the set of Bog.
I think they might have.
These two old people, man, are they still frisky?
Oh man, it's funny. They stopped what do they think? There's something they're going to make a pie when they get there, so they stop by an orchard or something. But it's lemon trees.
They're driving to dinner, and the old lady's like totally hitting on the guy. He's like, "Not while I'm driving, not while I'm driving. Don't do this while I'm driving," you know.
Yeah.
And then they go by what they look like as an orange grove. They think it's an orange grove, and she's like, "Oh, let's steal some oranges like we used to." "Oh, you could go to jail for that." She's like, "Don't be a fuddy-duddy. You're not gonna go to jail for stealing oranges." And then he looks at her and goes, "Wow, they're lemons.
Lemons, yeah.
They're not oranges." Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, well, we can steal lemons." It makes a lemon meringue. At this point, I'm looking at the TV going, "Thank God for marijuana."
Yes.
Thank God for marijuana. This movie was made for it. I'm like, thank you. Thank you, Illinois, for opening dispensaries. Thank God. You know, I'm watching this going, what the fuck is going on? So then they get out to steal the lemons.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, what do I put the lemons in?" And the old lady pulls her skirt up.
Yeah, says, "Put it in here.
Put it in here."
Yes.
He goes, "Oh, no. I'm like, oh my God. And then a dog starts barking. And then she's like, "Oh, I'm scared as hell. Let's get out of here." You know, I'm like, wow. Somebody directed this scene, didn't they? Like, what is going on? And then the poor old people, they don't even make it out. The poor old people, they get back in their car, and the melting man is like hiding in the back seat like he's Michael Myers.
Yes. I know that was a little much.
Yeah.
No, I didn't want to see them two die. I would have rather seen the rest of the movie of them two.
Right. Well, the movie's really set up as soon as they introduce characters, you know that they're just going to die at the hands of the melting man.
Right.
And that's what this is. It's a showcase for Rick Baker.
Yeah. Well, like the one guy he catches fishing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great little scene. Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically you see this head floating down the creek. and then it drops off like a waterfall down into like, it just hangs there, like just sits there. You're like, oh
Right.
my God.
And when it falls off the waterfall, it just absolutely it cracks right open. And this is all in slow motion. That is a neat scene. I remember that. I saw this once, I think on USA Network or something like that.
Yeah, I saw it. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a while.
Right. And I totally remember that because the movie goes back and forth between Rick Baker's effects are really effective. I mean, they are really good. And the funny thing is, he didn't really want to do this movie. So he did the old, I've done this too, by the way, like playing music. But so he's like, well, I don't want to do it. So I'll just give him a price. I don't really want to say no. So I'll just give them a price that they won't, they can't afford. Well, he shot them this ridiculous price and they accepted it. And so he did. But let me tell you something, Harley. That head, that's a great, this is 1977.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I mean, that's old. And that head it looks good. Not only that, but when they find the nurse, dead, like the nurse he kills in the beginning, they don't show it enough, but like half of her head is scooped out. Yeah. And like there's teeth and things. I mean, it looks as real could be. And really gross too. I mean, it's really gory and gross. And it's like, wow. It reminds me of Intruder. All those effects in an Intruder that are so like, oh my God, like the head's being sawed in half and stuff. But this is like, this is a more, Rick Baker, I think, was a little further along in his profession. Sure. And so it's just as ballsy as that. It's a ballsy. I mean,
oh, it's crazy. That part's it's a really bizarre part, man. The head's floating down just right down the creek, and it kind of bumps into some stuff and swirls around.
Right.
It's probably one of the better parts of the movie. It's just
it is
as far as the horror stuff. Yeah.
Well, and it is because it's basically Ted Nelson and Michael Perry walking around trying to find the melting man, and that they stick that in between other little micro moments of him finding more victims, and every victim is like their own little mini story, basically. So it's like from point A to point B to point B to point C, and you're introduced to these people knowing that they're going to go. But I'll tell you, the couple of the people they are introduced to, one of them is a model out with the photographer. And this is how they find the corpse, like without the head and stuff. So that photographer would not last long in 2021, Mr. Ben Harley.
No, he would not.
He was a little rapey. No. He was a little handsy.
He was a little rapey, yes. Yeah.
So he's basically out in the woods with this blonde gal, and he's telling her to take her top off. He's like, all right, take her clothes off. And she's like, I don't think that was part of the deal. Yeah, it is here. And he starts grabbing her top and pulling it down. I'm like...
And trying to snap photos while he's doing it. It's funny.
I was like, dude, you better cover your middle section there because she's about ready to kick you right between the legs. That's what right. But here's what's interesting. The model was played by Cheryl Smith, also known as Rainbow Smith. She was in some movies that you've seen, Mr. Ben Harley. Does she look familiar to you?
She kind of did.
She should have. She was in the movie Parasite, which is an old movie. Okay. She was also in Laser Blast.
Oh, that's her. I know her now.
Well, that's not exactly how you know her because she also gets killed by a rolling boulder in a tent with with Carradine and Massacre at Central High. Yeah.
That's her. Wow, that was her. Yeah. Okay.
So that's some of the victims.
Hilarious.
Yep. Another two victims, Mr. Ben Harley, that I had a hard time even believing that I was seeing what I was seeing. So there's a couple that go to their house. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a pretty small scene, and the woman, like it's of course a couple. They go to the house. The guy gets killed, and the woman about loses her mind afterwards. She completely loses it and goes ape shit. Well, the husband was played by one Jonathan Demme, otherwise known as the Oscar-winning director of Silence of the Lambs.
Really?
Yes, and he directed Philadelphia.
Wow. Oh, wow.
That's Jonathan Demme. Yeah, so that's him. Wow. Now, his wife was played by Janice Blythe, otherwise known as Ruby from the Hills Have Eyes movies.
Oh, wow.
She's the one that kind of helps out the kids and everything. She's the good guy, of the movie or whatever. So I was shocked when I saw
there's
them.
a lot of, wow. So we're on a little bit of a freak out. What's your name? Freak out there?
Mm-hmm.
Right,
yeah, Rainbow Smith or Cheryl Smith. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So again, I'm glad Rick Baker did it. It would be funny, but without the really good effects, there'd be something missing here. Because am I okay? It's kind of scary. I mean, it's a little scary. He comes up. One of the parts that is kind of creepy is he comes upon these kids. Now, I like these kids because they're acting the way kids at least acted when we were kids. They're lighting up cigarettes and they're reading Playboy magazine. So there's these kids, and then he comes upon the kids, and his two boys look this little girl. And I think they're playing like hide and go seek or something like that. Well, he scares the crap out of the little girl. She does that little girl scream where it sounds like Mariah Carey singing.
Right, yeah. It's a different level of octave.
Right. If you look closely, you can see the lens of the camera crack for a second when she does it. And then she goes running back to her mom saying that she saw Frankenstein, which, of course, I thought that was kind of funny. But he keeps following her. Yeah. I don't know, Harley. Yep. I mean, I had a really good time watching this movie, though.
Yeah, I did, too, because it's got a lot going on. You know, like the melting man, to me, a little bit, it's like, I don't know why. It is scary, but I keep thinking, like, he's melting. He's just going to be gone soon. You know what I mean? But, like, but I mean, it's a lot of, some of it's really bizarre, but some of it's, like, really damn good, too, and it kind of has this uncomfortable feeling of really weird and then kind of good, then back to like some of the, and it was funny because last night I said the same thing when I was watching. These people don't even act like human beings act ever. You know? Like, they're so weird. Right. So that gives it a kind of a weird feel too,
Well, it's almost like it wasn't written very well. Like that's just it doesn't need to be written very well. It's a very standard plot. It's no big deal. That's not a big deal. I think the problem is it wasn't directed well. I mean, these are good actors in this movie and stuff. So all the weird stuff they're doing, they're being directed to do. Like there's a weird part where the Dr. Ted Nelson guy is going to go look for the melting man, and his wife is she's falling apart. Yeah, and she's in bed, and he's telling her, he's like, "Well, I got to go." And
he goes on and he gives her the most uncomfortable looking hug I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, and he goes, "You take care of yourself now." Like, if I ever said that to my wife, she's like, "Why are you leaving me? What the hell are you doing? Like, take care of yourself, And then he puts his face in her crotch. You remember that? He like sticks he leans his face down her. I'm like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. Like, I don't care if it's your wife or not. Like, what are you doing? What is that? You like,
And the melting man had just killed the general out in front of their house, right? Like,
he's got a thing for chicken legs or turkey legs.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Yeah. And so then the melting man takes like a bite out of his cheek or something.
Yeah.
Attacks him. Yeah. So that's the thing, though. I mean, the melting man is kind of like hanging around outside Nelson's house. Yeah. In a way too. And those are scary moments too, because like, the wife is walking around the house hearing things, and of course the cat. How the hell does a cat get inside a refrigerator? Sorry, but the cat, like, there's a cat with like a broken milk bottle. Yeah. Like in the kitchen with the door open. It's like, how did the cat get inside the okay. All right. Yeah. So
let's go with it, Tim.
Yeah, right. But then, like, you see like a shadow coming up behind her and stuff. It's such a weird, uneven mix.
Yes.
That it's sort of, it does lend itself to what I told you, that the producers wanted a scary movie and the director wanted more of a comic book movie. This is what happens, Harley.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Absolutely. Because you tell me, I mean, it could have been one or the other. I think have been much more of a classic than it is.
Yeah, I do too. It's just because it's just got some really odd stuff going on, like that just kind of take you out of it for a second, Yeah. And then, but some of it, like I said, some of it's pretty funny. I'm not sure I should be laughing about this or laughing at it, I guess.
Right. The motivation of this film is out there. It's out there. It's totally out there. And And the thing is that this movie was clearly made by people who knew how to make movies. It's shot well.
Sure, definitely, yeah.
Again, this movie is not played quite as straight as I like it.
Right, it's not. It's some weird stuff sometimes.
Right. But that's uncomfortable too, because some of it is.
Yes.
And then you get the old couple who the only thing straight about that couple is them.
Yeah, right. Now he starts running around too with the policeman, right? And he's not happy about anything.
No, because the police really don't help a lot, like toward the end.
No,
they really don't fall back on their training as well as you would hope. I would assume they weren't trained to act the way they did at the end of this film.
Tell you though, he gets thrown off of that building, not the building, but where they had like a factory or
he ends up they end up following the melting man to some sort of like power station or factory, or something like that, and with a lot of scaffolding and a lot of stairs and high places to fall off of, basically, and industrial noise and stuff. So he's killing a couple people there. He throws the sheriff off. I think the sheriff lands or his dummy at least lands in some more power lines, doesn't he?
Yeah, that actually looked really good, man. That was a pretty good effect too.
I'll tell you what, the guy's blood must have been a gasoline.
Because he went up fast.
He was literally on fire. It's like, wow, okay. But then I guess the melting man starts attacking Dr. Ted Nelson. Nelson actually gets the melting guy to kind of realize who he is. He kind of gets the humanity back for a second. And then these cops run up, just waving, brandishing their guns, going, "Who are you? What's going on? What the hell's going on?" And he goes, "Wait, stop. I'm Dr. Ted Nelson." He goes, "Who the hell is that? Stop it. I'm Dr. Ted Nelson." Harley.
Yeah. Don't you know Dr. Ted Nelson?
I was 4 in 1977, all right?
Yeah.
But I probably would advise people, if you're being arrested by the cops, you just don't tell them your name's Ted Nelson.
No.
Apparently. Because as soon as they realize who he is, they shoot him in the face.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like, what the hell's going on? Then that pisses off the melting man.
No, he gets pissed for sure.
Right. So then he kills everybody. Nobody lives. He kills everybody. And then what does he do? He goes and he sits down next to a trash can and just continues to melt.
It just completely melts away.
Right. And then this old dude comes to work. Folks, this is real. This old guy comes to work. He's got his lunch pail with him and everything, and he looks at this melted man sitting next to a trash can. So what does he do? He throws him away, scoops him up, and puts him in the can.
Scoops up. Yeah. Gotta clean up some, huh? Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Must have been hard. This is like one of the greatest movies I've seen since The Giant Claw.
Oh man, there you go, buddy. Yeah.
I really did like it though. It was really entertaining. It was really fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely entertaining.
As much as we're kind of complaining that it maybe should have been more of a comic booky type of movie or just a straight horror film, I think the uncomfortable push and pull might make it more enjoyable.
Sure. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed it, Tim. There was some parts were really laughable and kind of like, oh, come on. But overall, I thought it just, it has a. Besides, I guess, the actors not really acting like any human on the planet.
That was one of the best parts.
Still fun. Yeah, exactly. So, you know what I mean? So, it's just. It's something else. It's something to behold, I'll tell you that much.
Well, there's some movies like. I'm gonna grab out of the air here, like The Meg. Which it's a popcorn movie, but the people are acting kind of serious and stuff, and there's kids in peril and things, and there's things happening, but then they'll do something really action movie orientated, and you go, oh, come on, and it kind of pulls you out of it. This ain't like that. This is more like, huh? And when one of those things happens, you're enjoying it because it's funny, because it's only adding to the strangeness of your experience.
Right. And it's an experience, that's for sure.
It is. It's like trying to explain an acid trip to somebody.
Yeah.
I can't really do that. You just have to trust me on this. It's weird.
It's weird. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right. What a fun movie, though.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, this movie is pretty much your old-fashioned, a guy starts turning into a monster, gets so pissed off about it, he kills everybody he sees.
Right. Exactly.
It's almost like they threw in the part where he needed cells to give a reason.
Right.
Because you really do sit back and go, why is he killing people?
Yeah.
I mean,
why is he so angry?
I mean, I can understand him being a little upset. I mean,
yeah.
He's having a bad day.
Right. Yes, he is.
The dummy looked through the sun through the rings of Saturn like a moron. Like we all learned that in third grade. Come on. Yeah. But anyway, I'm going to give this movie, Mr. Benner, I'm going to give this movie a big great bape up.
Okay.
Big great bape up. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a great bape up myself, but it was fun, interesting, and bizarre at times. So.
Yeah. I can't really think of a more perfect movie for our podcast, for our show.
Oh, right.
Really kind of encapsulate what we enjoy and like to kind of talk about and stuff. And these movies, there's it's almost like this is its own kind of art form.
Right. Yeah.
And it sort of needs to be preserved because there's a lot of talent on display here and a lot of silliness. And these movies almost become comedies, but you can also really appreciate the artistry of all of it as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's neat to see Rick Baker's stuff too in there.
Absolutely. All right, so two great bapes up. Mine's a bigger great bape up a little bit, but I think both pretty good, solid, big great bapes up for the incredible melting man. Yes. All right, Miss Benner, not sure we're doing next week. Maybe we will try First Man into Space.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, let's try it. Back to back and and kind of contrast it. All right, well, until next week, all you deep thinkers out there, be good to each other, stay safe. We'll be right back here next week, so stay spooky, and we'll talk to you then.
Keep it creepy, people.
You've been listening to the Tim O and Harley Show, brought to you by ScreenPrintingFactory.com, your affordable one-stop solution to all your screen printing needs.